This video is one that I really didn't think I'd be making. Shortly after this happened, I was talking to a pastor of mine, and he recommended I not share it with anybody. So I've always kind of kept it to myself. I've shared it with people close to me, I've shared it with. But I think it's important to share, and at the end of this, you'll see why it's important to share. But there's a story that goes along with this, so I apologize. It's something you kind of grow to love or hate about me, is I always got a story to tell. But I've been divorced, and when I first went through a divorce, I was really seeking out God in that thing as best I could. And I started dating a girl from church. And at the time, I had a pastor who would preach verse by verse. I love that. And he was going through 1 Corinthians, verse by verse. And he got to the part about divorce and marriage. And it really hit my heart hard because what I was reading, now keep in mind he's going verse by verse. So what I was reading a little bit ahead, was that, if you divorce, you're not to remarry. And that really bothered me a lot. Like, I really struggled with that because I couldn't imagine, at least for me, and I know being alone is great for a lot of people, but for me, I always kind of desired to be with somebody, and this was really hard. It's hard to take in. So there was one night, we were also going through the book of Malachi verse by verse with him and a group of men on Wednesday nights, and it was after one of those classes. I asked if I could talk to him, and I asked him, my pastor, if, to help me understand this, like what is this? What is this? Am I really not to remarry? And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, Mark, I'm going to let you figure that one out. And I was kind of upset at him. I was like, well, you're my pastor. You're supposed to help me with this stuff. But thank God he didn't. And so I was driving home. It was a long drive. It was at night, and I was frustrated. And I was talking to that girl on the phone and sharing my frustration. And she was telling me that, there was this sermon she had heard a while back about where when Jacob wrestled with an angel, that he was really kind of, the point of the sermon was that there was this, moment in time when he was a swindler. Jacob was a swindler, and he was coming face to face with his past. He was coming face to face with the sins of his past. And it's a really strange verse, but it just says he went across the brook ahead of everybody, and then he was just fighting an angel. And he held on to the angel, and the angel said, "Let me go." And he said, "Only if you bless me." And then he reached down and jacked his hip up and told him that he would now be called Israel, and it was a huge blessing. And what I was to get out of that sermon, that particular sermon, was really that you're just not supposed to let go of it. Just fight it out with God until you're blessed in that thing. So I decided that's what I was going to do, that we were just going to have it out. I knew I was the one in the wrong. And I had to have understanding in that thing. So I went home, and the plan was, at the time I lived in a farmhouse in the middle of the country in Freeman, Missouri. Anybody knows where Freeman is? Strange for a divorced guy to move to a town called Freeman, but that's what I did. And I lived in this old farmhouse, and I decided I was just going to shut my phone off. I was going to lock the door. I wasn't coming in, I wasn't coming out till this was resolved. And I just kind of started praying and reading the Bible and praying and reading the Bible and praying and reading the Bible, and then maybe taking a break and using the restroom, and then praying and reading the Bible, and then maybe going. And it was kind of one of those things that it was just kind of trying to figure it out. And I started to doze off, and I didn't want to doze off. So I kept setting an alarm for every 15 minutes. That way, if I dozed off, I'd wake up and then get back at it. And I was lying on my couch in my living room, and there's like a staircase that goes up behind the couch. So there's like a space behind the couch, where you can pass by it. My couch wasn't up against the wall, so to say. And I was lying on the couch, and I was awake. I was tired, but I was awake, and the lights were on because I was trying to be alert. All of a sudden, standing behind the couch, leaning over me, was a figure, a man. I assume it was a man. I mean, it definitely wasn't a woman. It was a man. But it was burning bright white. It was like this bright white flaming glow that was like a welding torch. So bright, it was white. Like, it wasn't orange. It was a white, burning, flaming man. Kind of had a slender build. Wasn't a very big person. And it horrified me. It horrified me. I was, like, I think if there was a monster there, it wouldn't have been as bad. Like, I almost just froze in trembling fear, and I'm sure I got more gray hair in that moment. Like, I was horrified. Maybe the scaredest I've ever been in my life. And then it just reached down. I couldn't do anything. I just sat there and stared at it in horror. And it reached down and grabbed me on the shoulder, this shoulder, and jacked my shoulder up. It hurt so bad. It was like he just kind of grabbed it, and he didn't pull it out of its socket. It's almost like he just was shredding the muscle around it with his fingers. And I screamed. It hurt so bad. And then I just went unconscious. And the next day I woke up, and I was in a lot of pain. We'll start with that piece. I was in a lot of pain. And I'm going to share why I'm sharing this story here in a second. But I was in a tremendous amount of pain. But I was where I needed to be with God, if that makes sense. It didn't matter what his word was. I was just going to be obedient to his word. And I was okay with it. I was very okay with it. I was good. And the beautiful thing is I spent the next several weeks just studying that subject out. I almost feel like an expert on the biblical divorce. Like, what does the Bible say about divorce? But ultimately what it led to is, when you continue on in 1 Corinthians, is that it says, but if you're burning in the lust of your flesh, well, then just get married. It's okay. It's better to do that. It's better to do that. And that's, and that was kind of what led, I did not marry that girl. It took me a long time to figure this out, and I kind of had to let her go it's not fair to keep somebody with you, while you're, I don't know if I can ever marry you or not. Like, it's just not fair. So, we didn't work out, but when I did finally meet my wife, I was okay. I was okay. Like, I knew God was okay. I was okay. We're good. But that injury, like that, what I realized what that was it was an angel, because I wasn't really, I assumed it was an angel, but I thought, maybe something, I don't know. I don't know what that thing was. I mean, I knew it was of God, but God has all sorts of different spiritual beings doing different things, so I wasn't really quite sure what happened in that moment. But in the book of Enoch, when Enoch's taken up into the heavenly realm, he sees that they can turn into this bright, burning flame figure. They can take the shape of a man. They can take all sorts of forms. But a burning man is one of them. So a flame of a person who is on fire, essentially, and that's one of the forms of the angel. So, I believe in that moment, that God was showing me that this is a thing that, that we have to remember. This is like a covenant between you and I. And we got to remember this thing. And I'm doing it through injuring your shoulder, because for the longest time I couldn't throw a baseball. I couldn't throw a frisbee. I've been to the chiropractor about a gazillion times. They can't figure it out. Of course, any general doctors, give me anti-inflammatory, but that helps sometimes, doesn't help. So, I'm not going to do that. So I work out my shoulder, and it was actually doing pretty good, but I was on vacation with my wife. We actually just got back today. And I was, just the other day, right before we started heading home, I just was doing some push-ups. I was like, just immediately tweaked it again. So it's kind of that thing that just doesn't stop, like it's injured and it's always going to be injured. Honestly, if a surgeon said I can fix that, I wouldn't be interested. It's what God gave me, and it's an injury He gave me, because I know that angel was only there because God told him to be there. But in the moment that I was like, all right, God, let's fight this out, He reaches down and jacks me up through that angel. And even right now, it hurts. Like, even on the flight home, I kept telling my wife, like, I can't have a stranger to my right, because I'm going to just need to move my arm around a lot. Eventually I have to put my arm up and around them, or maybe over on their lap or something, because I just got to move it. It hurts so bad. So only she can be on that side, or a wall, but not a person that's a stranger. Because it hurts. And I kind of just went through traveling with it and stuff, or traveling home, hauling luggage and stuff. I have a rule, I don't let my wife carry luggage, so I just hauling it all. And I was reminded of that, that night. I hadn't thought about that night in a long time. And it's that injury that does it. It brought it back up. And then all the way home, I kept kind of just really hearing God say, you just need to share, it's time to share this story. It's time to share it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just one person's dealing with some stuff. And I believe that the most important part of why He wants me to share it, is that those are really things going on around us. There's a spiritual realm around us, and they're warring against each other, and they're warring over us. And it's real. You can't act like it's not. You can't. I stared at it, jacked my shoulder up. My shoulder still hurts. I'd have to think. I think that's been at least 15 years ago, and it still hurts. I'm not an athlete, so it's not like I'm out, throwing baseballs or anything, thinking, oh, I got this shoulder injury from my football days. Nothing like that. An angel reached down and He jacked my shoulder up super bad to really kind of ignite me and being, okay with the decisions my Father makes for me. And I think that we just have to be there, and when you read His word, He's going to make it plain and clear what those things are. But I know that it's very important for us to know that that's going on around us. It's real. It's happening. Don't pretend it's not just because you didn't see it. And I've only seen that, that particular flaming guy one time. But I just think it's important to share now. I don't know why. Other than I think there's people that need to hear that, and you definitely all need to know it's real and it's out there. And just all around us right now. Right now.